How is it
Glad to
now?
know you're still with us. The Nigerian economy for a while now has been eliciting adverse statistics, with expert projections ranging from very gloomy to alarming. While poverty deepens in the land, business breakfast brings burning issues to the front burner. Joining us for more on this is public affairs analyst Nelson Ekujumi. He joins us virtually. Hello, Nelson. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, revenue generation, high cost of fuel, subsidy payment, debt stock, and debt servicing burden have almost become synonymous with the word Nigeria. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel in the short to medium term?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you can identify your problem, then definitely you should be able to, to provide solutions to those problems. And if our problem as a country is one of rising debt, then we need to look at our revenue, sources. That how do we push in the revenue? Also, you talk about unemployment, and when you're talking about unemployment, it's about creating jobs, creating wealth. How do you create employment for people? The only way to create employment for people is to increase the investment in education and what have you, as well as provide infrastructure. Because, like I said earlier in some other episode of your program, I've told you clearly that when we talk about unemployment, we need to ask ourselves: can we take a data of the people who are unemployed and ask what type of employment are we going to create? What skills do they have to offer? Then you talk about the price of power, fuel, and what have you. The reason why we have continued to battle with the, astronomical cost of rising cost of fuel is as a result of us getting our priorities wrong. As a country, we've had 4 refineries in the 70s, and as we speak, none of those refineries are up and doing, and we have to reduce the importation of crude oil.
All right,
And
Mr.
when you
Nelson, let me
have
come in
on,
here. I like
yes,
that you've talked about fuel. Now let's look at fuel scarcity. Sometime last week, marketers said that scarcity will continue for about 6 months. And then before then, we witnessed hikes in pump prices. We saw the periodic petrol scarcity that, graced 2022. And then at another time last year, we were told the scarcity was due to forex scarcity. That's the scarcity in PMS. Availability of PMS was as a result of forex scarcity. Now, the question will be, what exactly is the issue here? What exactly is the problem in this sector?
yes, the problem in that sector are multifaceted. The problem in that sector has to do with the fact that we don't have dispensing mechanism majorly outside Lagos State. For example, people who need PMS, we say Kaduna, Warri, Port Harcourt, Enugu, have to travel all the way down to Lagos to lift petroleum products. And you all know that if you are concentrating all your eggs in one basket, the consequences to be well known to anybody. You don't need to, seek a parable. They have to traverse the road to Lagos. And in nothing in Lagos, even if you have 50 roads into the petroleum depot, they would know from a particular point. And, all precautions have to be put in place. And those precautions, to be effective need to take time. If you have 20 pumps and you have 1,000 vehicles, definitely you know that it will take time for all those vehicles, to be loaded with PMS. So long as you don't have depots outside Lagos that are up and running, so long as you don't have internal refineries that are producing this product locally, so long we continue to battle with the issue of scarcity, we will continue to battle with the issue of forest, we will continue to battle with the issue of storage. Because if we don't have storage, everybody has to put their head in one point. And when everybody puts their head in one point, it creates a lockdown. It's just like on a road when there's compare a six-way lane to a one-way traffic road. So definitely there will be more lockdowns in a one-way traffic road, in a two-lane traffic road, than a six-lane traffic. So that is exactly what is happening. Unless and until we get our refineries working, thank God later this year, the Dangote refinery will be coming on stream. The refineries that are being rehabilitated, so one or two of them will be up and doing. I think if we're able to get those two right, it will go a long way in addressing the scarcity of petroleum products. It will go a long way in addressing the issue of astronomical increase in price of petroleum products, as well as ensuring that the liberalization of the sector by the government, becomes fully managed.
All right. Well, some persons have actually condemned the dollarization of that particular sector. But what measures must be taken to, address fuel scarcity in the country? I'm looking at fuel scarcity now in the short term. What can be done?
What can be done for the government and the stakeholders in that industry to come together and put their heads on the table and agree to solve this problem once and for all. If we can have the majority of the stakeholders being on the same table, being on the same page, because no matter what we do, there will be bad heads among us. There will be those who will see scarcity as a means of getting more profit. For example, if you go around the state or you go around the country, there are some fuel stations that will not sell during the day, but will prefer to sell at night. And that is because they want to make astronomical, profit. But if we have majority of the stakeholders on the same page to address this problem is surmountable. It's about demand and supply. If they have agreed that the petroleum depot, the private tank owners who are in custody of petrol that have been brought in by NNPC, I agree with NNPC and other stakeholders that look, this is the way to go, and we all come to a table discussion, and we all try the way forward. I'm sure this issue of scarcity and price disparity that has continued to be with us for some months now will be a thing of the past. But majorly, unless and until we get our refineries working locally, that is the permanent antidote to this mess that we have found ourselves.
All right. Quickly now, let's move to fuel subsidy. Yesterday, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, that's Zainab Ahmed, said the fuel subsidy regime will be removed gradually from the second quarter of this year. Second quarter starts April, if I'm correct. Of course I am. By this present administration. First, let me take your reaction to that. Mr. Nelson, if you can hear me. Did you hear what I said?
I heard you loud and clear. You can hear me.
All right, go ahead.
Did you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I said the issue of removal of fuel subsidy is a discussion that we have all come to the conclusion. Majority of us will take a statistic that look, it has to go. It has to go so as to be able to free up more resources for government to undertake its responsibility to the citizens and the society. So there's no doubt about that the gradual removal of subsidy has to take effect because of the social, economic, and security implication of fuel in the life of the country. I as a person, as much as I'm a strong advocate for the removal of subsidy, I'm also conscious of the economic, social, security implications of the removal of fuel subsidy. And I believe the government being conversant with these indices in the policy has decided that it will be a gradual process. We can only remove fuel subsidy. For me, I'll be a champion of total removal of fuel subsidy to this morning if I can be guaranteed that the local refineries would have started production yesterday, and this is what they are producing to meet the local demand. Then we can, beat our chest and say this thing has to go. But the method or the modus operandi that the Minister for Finance has, outlined, I think it is the way to go for any rational, and the economic concept.
All right, let me come in here. I remember the whole issue about fuel subsidy. Of course, a lot of persons are against it, or maybe were against it, because people have taken different positions now. And then one of the reasons was what you've also mentioned, socioeconomic impact on the people. And now we're talking about, removing it gradually. But even at that, there have been concerns about the impact of the sudden removal of fuel subsidies. And then the talk about gradual removal, of course, is preferred now. But how confident are you that even this particular process will be transparent? Now, how will Nigerians know what is being saved? And how do you know what is spent per liter? How do you know how many liters are being consumed? And of course, what is being paid for, or what, these are some of the things that a lot of persons want to know. I mean, a transparent process. So we are sure that we're actually removing subsidy gradually, and then we're able to say this was what was spent, this was what we would have spent, or this is what we would have spent if we had not removed, these are some of the things people are looking at. How do we ensure a transparent process? Because, there's this distrust between the people and government.
Well, yes, I agree with you that there's this discourse between the people and government, but government also has the responsibility at every point in time, despite the discourse, to continue to communicate to the people as much as, within their subsidy, the transparency of it can be seen in the fact that over the years, subsidy has been, an item in the budget. And if we say we are removing subsidy, it means an act of parliament, has come to force as a law. And if something is law, it means anything going outside of it, becomes a violation. So the issue of transparency in the process is as clear as sunlight. That when government makes budget, there will be no more provisions for fuel subsidy. And going forward, we cannot just suppose maybe in a year or two after the total removal of subsidy and look back and say, okay, in year 2022, 1 billion naira or 1.6 billion was budgeted for fuel subsidy. But in year 2024, there's zero amount budgeted for fuel subsidy. And if you look at the 1.6 trillion, maybe in 2022, don't forget the fact that the cost of goods in 2022, the cost of goods and services in 2020 will not be the same with the cost of goods and services in 2024. So it's for us to now say, oh, in 2024, a budget of maybe we are building 50, building those schools for maybe 2 billion. We can now come together and say, look, this amount of money has been saved, and this is what it has done for us.
All right, you were talking about how that at the end of the day, what's important is transparency, and we are able to juxtapose and see that, okay, this was what was budgeted in the previous year, this is what we have now, and we can all see the difference, and that will be better for it. Well, add to that, the minister also revealed that the nation sometimes borrows to import fuel. And the question for me will be, how bad can it really get for a product that's been produced here in Nigeria, saying that we borrow sometimes to import fuel? Let me have your thought on that. Mr. Nelson, I was asking you, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning was speaking, and she said that sometimes the country borrows to import fuel. And I'm wondering why we have to do that, and I wanted to hear your thought, your reaction to that. Okay, Mr. Nelson, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Nelson Ekujimi is still here with us. Nelson, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Before we went on that break, I was asking for your thought on that particular statement that was made by the Minister Zainab Ahmed, saying that Nigeria borrows to import fuel.
Well, if we want to, as a country or as an individual, if you want to purchase a good or services and you don't have the liquidity as at the moment you want to purchase it, and you are credit worthy, I think the best way to go to solve, a pressing problem is to borrow. I don't see any crime in borrowing to fulfill, a social, economic, and security implications for your people. Something that is a necessity, because we all know that fuel represents life, not only in Nigeria but all over the world, because it is used, as a means of power. And without power, life comes to an end anywhere in the world. So if we have to borrow to import fuel, and the borrowing...
Mr. Nelson, the irony there is this is a product that we have in large quantity. What stops us from producing? What stops us really from refining this product? Why do we have to even go to the point of borrowing to import? Is it as a result of foreign exchange? Is it that we don't have... I mean, what exactly is the issue?
Well, the issue is that it is a consequence of the mismanagement of our Commonwealth by leaders, from time past. And that is why a product that ordinarily we should be the ones producing, we have to borrow to go and source it from outside. It's just like a cobbler who has to go and borrow seeds outside, for a student.
Oh, well, let's quickly look at the securitization of the Ways and Means. I mean, the National Assembly has said that they would like, specifically now, let's talk about the Senate, saying that they will look at the merit of that particular request, saying that the CBN and the Minister of Finance, that Zainab Ahmed, should bring some of the reports so that they will understand how the Ways and Means came about, and they just want to know a lot more about the Ways and Means, and we do not know if they are going to approve it after that. But let me have your thoughts. What do you think about the securitization of the Ways and Means advances? Mr. Nelson, if you can hear me, I was asking what your thought is, especially when we look at the securitization of the Ways and Means. That's on the one hand. I want to know your thought. And on the other hand, we're also looking at what the Senate is saying that they need these two people to bring them, a report really on how the Ways and Means advances came about.
Well, the securitization of the Ways and Means, I don't think it's something bad, because it's a short-time advance, to government by the CBN. And if an act or a law is in place, it is imperative on us to ensure that law is followed to the letter. So if the government is, securitization so long as it doesn't violate the law, I think we need to look at the law. For me, that is the question I want to throw back to our audience. And looking at the request by the CBN, I think it is within their power, and we must encourage them, to do that, because once you are in public office, you must be answerable to the people for your actions. And if the National Assembly, as representatives of the people, are asking to look into the book, it is well within their power that we must encourage that, so that transparency and accountability will be our watchword in our public life.
All right, but there are people who are really concerned, and they are saying things like, even the particular Ways and Means we're talking about here, the 22 trillion naira, apart from the 1 trillion naira that they just want to add to it, the 22 trillion naira that has already been expended, they are saying that the right procedure wasn't even followed. And so if we have a situation where the National Assembly gets to approve it, isn't that legalizing illegality? Because on the one hand, a wrong has been done, because there are regulations that guide this Means and Ways advances, and obviously these regulations were not followed.
Yes, I agree that the Ways and Means advance law has been violated, in one way or the other by the government. But like we always say in a normal parlance, that it just even biblical that the law was made for man and not man for the law. If the Ways and Means advance has to be explored to address emergency, are you saying we should wait and follow the law and allow life to be wasted and allow calamities to befall us? Oh, no, I don't agree in that way. But I see a solution in amending that law to address certain acts that are not foreseen, in exploring that means of financing projects. In that way, we limit the level of, violations we see with regards to that. And if violations have, occurred outside of the, within the Ways and Advances, procedure, it is there for the National Assembly to recommend appropriate sanctions, as well as they also look at ways of, amending it to address some present realities. Government, as we know, is like an octopus. It has so many heads, and when issues come up at certain times, those issues cannot be, delayed or suspended to allow for those issues, to become either a dead monster that it could, likely turn out to be. So the Ways and Means advance, to be looked into, where violations have been done, presently, I think appropriate recommendations to be taken by the National Assembly.
All right. Thank you so much, Nelson Ekujimi, for sharing your thoughts with us on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we'll come back, we'll bring you the Global Oil Report. Stay with us.